Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Blackmail Impact. My name is Dr. Richard A. Cross, and I'm the founder of the Blackmail Impact. Today we have an amazing guest, Mr. Mr. Chester Higgins. Mr. Higgins, welcome to the Blackmail Impact.
Thank you very much for having me.
Man, it's a pleasure. For those who are here with us, I'm just going to ask you, please share this conversation with your network. I'm going to briefly share a little about Mr. Higgins, and then I'm going to give him the opportunity to share more with you before we get into the conversation today. As you know, we are on the theme of honoring legacy, elevating identity, unlocking generational dreams. And Mr. Higgins have spent decade working in this space, saving, documenting the history. But I'll let him talk more about it. But I'll say this: it was his seventh book that really caught my attention, "The Sacred Mile," which explores the history of faith in Africa, which also discovered glorious African influence on philosophy, spirituality, and religion, thousands of years before Genesis and slavery. He also was or still is, a photographer for 40 years with the New York Times, but I've spent over 50 years taking pictures. I've seen some people that we know, from Maya Angelou, all the people historically that we may come across in our time. He have some work in that space with those individuals. So I just want to, open the floor to Mr. Higgins to talk more about his work, although we're going to dive into it during the conversation, but just to give us, the listeners, some context before we get started. So, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you very much, Dr. Cross. I'm so happy to join you and your audience. Um, just fact checking. I worked for the Times for 40 years, but I've retired now. I
Okay.
retired in 14. So since 14, I've only been working. When I worked for the Times, I had two jobs, working for the Times and working for my people.
Okay.
Now I'm just working for my people. So I'm
Right.
happy about
Right.
that. And I'm glad that you discovered Sacred Nile because the reason I'm a photographer is because in the media space in this country, I grew up in an environment in the 50s and 60s where um, the media treated us, our people, very badly. And I came across this photographer at college at Tuskegee, P.H. Polk, who had made magnificent photographs of poor people, of farmers from the Depression, but he captured their sense of dignity that was just something you didn't see at the time. And looking at those pictures, it made me think. I was in college majoring in business management. No,
Okay.
no idea about art. But looking at those pictures and realizing I did not have the money to pay him to go south to my little village of 800 people to photograph the two people who I loved the most, other than my mother and father, was my great uncle, March 4th McGowan, and his sister, my great aunt, Shug McGowan Lampley. Shug lived to die at 98. My Uncle Foth lived to die at 108. And I wanted to photograph these people because I knew that they only had two things on their walls because I grew up with them. They had a farmer's almanac because we were a farming community raising cotton, peanuts, and sugarcane. And they had a picture of Jesus Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane. And I thought that I could give them a picture themselves to put on their wall as a gift from me to them, as an acknowledgement of my love of them, and also an acknowledgement of the agency that I think that they possess as people. And that's what I did. It took me about a year and a half to learn the camera, to become proficient enough to go home and make those pictures. And then to go back with prints and frame and put them up on their wall, because I did all of this to be able to watch their hearts smile. See, when they realized that a picture of them, that they were worth being on their own wall. And that was why I started, and that's why I continue to do that from the same perspective, photographing, using the camera as an instrument of love. This is how I love my people. This is how I love myself, and this is how I capture things that I respect, people that I respect. How I use a camera as a mirror to reflect upon the human actions of decency and generosity that we have as a people among ourselves. Um, and I use in my books. I came about my books because I wanted people to see what I was doing. So I had to publish it to give it a wider audience. So I had to navigate that part of the publishing industry, and as well as navigating corporate America working for New York Times. But I felt the Spirit put me in these places because there was a need. And the need is because, if what Elijah Muhammad says, what you eat is what you become.
Correct.
I also believe that what we see and ingest in our other senses also is what we become. And
Correct.
I know that the only thing that we were ingesting from the media was negativity, because we're getting the media is in control of our enemies control the media, and our enemies don't hate us, and they want us to hate ourselves, and they
Correct.
do a very good job at it. So I wanted to try to. I knew I couldn't change the media, uh,
Correct.
but if I wanted to add something, another portion of myself to the national visual conversation. And the only way to do that was to make the pictures. I say make because I don't take pictures. I make pictures. Make the pictures. Find a way to get a designer to work with me and get a publisher to work with me and publish the pictures. People who I can convince. So that's where my business skills came in handy, because I had to convince
Yeah.
corporations to invest certain amount of money into these projects, that
Correct.
and because they want to hear that they're going to make their money back. And
Correct.
also that means that I had to help them identify this narrow market and go after that market to make it work. So the Spirit is in charge, and it gave me all these tools and skills to make it possible for my mission to come. But that mission, over time, um, got to be took longer and longer time. Life happened. Went through a
Correct.
divorce. But each year from 1970, my first visit to Africa, I didn't know what I was going to be experiencing, because I only knew, I didn't know African students, because at Tuskegee, we have African students who are science majors, but they're graduate students, but they live in a dormitory. And you listen to their music, and I began to I was attracted to their music. That's why I discovered Fela Rasamkuti and others. And then I became attracted by spending time with them and looking at the books that they read, and they read political biographies, and that's why I came in association with the biographies of His Majesty Haile Selassie, or Kwame Nkrumah's books, or Atukwe's, and so it was a gradual thing. But in 1970, I got a ticket to go to Africa, and part of me, my intellectual part of me, is looking forward to this. But my emotional part of me has been formed by my enemies, who tell me who show me pictures where African people are swinging from trees in Tarzan, or, they're full of superstition and hocus pocus, that the white man scares them easy. So I don't know what to expect, but I'm stepping out on faith.
Yeah.
And I get there, and the door opens, and that air comes in, and I smell that air, and I say, I feel good. And then I look at the land around me and the people, and I said, wow, I don't know these people, but, they seem like cousins. I think there's a connection here. I'm going to go with this. And so that trip in 1970 marked the first trip. And every year since then, I have made it a point to go to Africa to hang out with my cousins. So the shortest trip I've had was a week. The
Wow.
longest trip I've had was was 8 weeks. I take them as if that's what I can get, then I take it, And
Yeah.
I find that Africa, that going and visiting Africa is cheaper than therapy. Because
Wow.
the first thing that happens is that you're walking around in a community where everybody looks like you. You are not the exception. And your skin is fundamentally what's important is that your skin is no longer a target.
Correct.
And you represent normacy. You're not when we live in predominant white cultures, we are not the norm. Their numbers outnumber us. It may be different in the Caribbean and areas, but the fact that I'm in the norm, the fact that white people who are there are looking around trying to find other white people, but I'm okay. If somebody doesn't like me, it's because I do something offensive. But if I
Correct.
don't do anything offensive, I go along like everybody else, and I have a good time, and it gives me the ability to just make friends. And I'm the kind of person, I came from a gun culture, and a gun culture. One of the things we were taught is that you never take your gun out unless you're going to use it, and I do
Right.
the same thing with the camera. So only when I see, and because I've trained to my eye has been trained to understand, visual linguistics. I don't have to have a camera around my neck all the time. I
Correct.
I see a picture, and if you see a picture, the best way to make that picture is to see it before it happens. So I see a picture happening, unfolding. I have my camera ready. I make that picture and I put it back in, because what I'm trying to do is I don't want to come there and be an outsider.
Correct. Or
I
you
don't
just
want
want to fit in.
as a photographer. I want to come there and make friends. I want to become the friend that you make who happens to have a camera that he takes out every now and then. And that's it. And that way I love it. The people love it. My first year there, in the summers of 72, 73, I spent in Ghana. And one of the things which was the year after I first went to Senegal, and because I made friends with a man we were both young at the time. Age happens, and years later, I meet his brother, who was Kofi Annan. And I don't know if you've heard of Kofi Annan, but he was the only African who was head of the United Nations.
Oh, wow.
Incredible guy. And but I went there on, cheap charter flights, cheap, going over with academics and school teachers who were spending their time, in libraries and doing their research at the university of the Ghanaian university called Legon campus. While they were doing that, I took my camera and my film and I started hitchhiking because, they can call and make friends with people, but and sit down and have coffee and stuff. But you can't do that for a picture. You've got to go find the picture. So I started hitchhiking and taking local transportation, what they call cho-cho trucks, and just dropping off in villages and feeling the vibe and finding someone I can connect myself with who can help me learn the community and move around. And that's how I lived those 2 summers. And it was absolutely great. I mean, eating with the people in the dishes they ate with, sleeping in their homes, uh, washing in cold water, using plants, leaves to scrub yourself down, and just taking in the culture, just living with the people, being with the people, and making friends. And that's what all my work is about, trying to be with the people, make friends. And I'm there with you. I don't know, wherever this is.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
And I think, whatever food you offer, because I come from the South, and African people are the same way in Africa. You go to somebody's home, you got to eat. You got to eat something,
Oh,
or
that's right.
drink something. And, I figure, hey, if it doesn't kill them, they still walking around. It probably won't kill me. So because also, as a photographer, you have to make bridges of trust. And you can't make a bridge of trust by saying, "Oh no, that's okay. I don't want that." You have to,
Right.
you have to dive in and like do it, it's all good. I tell everybody, every Western-born African, and I say Western-born, not African American. We are all Western-born Africans over here.
Correct.
A Ghanaian friend of mine taught me the tragedy of the word African American, because it's not, the word is not a tragedy, but tragically defines our condition. And that condition is that we are African people stranded in the Western Hemisphere that has made us African people without memory. And the other half of that, of African Americans, is that we are Americans because of our enemies and racism. We are Americans without privilege.
Oh, wow.
So we are Africans without memory. We are Americans without privilege. The only thing that we are, that we know, that really defines who we are, is that we are Western born Africans. And I know that a lot of African Americans, I grew up, I'm an African American, I grew up, I understand this, that, we have been taught by our enemy to hate ourselves. And hating ourselves is hating where we come from.
Correct.
And as Malcolm said, who taught you that? You didn't teach yourself that. You were trained to act that way. It is your enemy who taught you to hate yourself, because you have internalized his hatred for you. So you're going to turn around and you're going to out hate the enemy who hates you. And then turn around and teach that same hate that you unfortunately have been
Internalize.
poured into you by the media, by your condition, by your socialization, and you're going to pour that into your relationships with other people and into your children. And this is so unfortunate. So, but what else can we do? We don't know anything else. And that was been one of the driving things that kept me going back to Africa. We don't know the source of ourselves. We don't know the meaning of ourselves. We don't know that there is something about us that exists outside of the corner, that exists outside of the clubs and our standing around and calling each other the nigger, uh, you know, which is a white invention. And we've gotten so used to this that we debase ourselves and debase our women, our mothers. I'm sorry, as a black man, check it out. We
Correct.
are the only people who call our women bitch. White men don't call us women bitch. He don't go online and say that bitch. Asian men don't go online and say that bitch. Arab men don't go online and say that nigga bitch. We are the only one. Now what? Come on, we can do better than this. Cause when you put it, don't your mother who gave you life, who let you suck on her. If you couldn't suck on her titty, you'd be dead. And the woman who grows, and the young girl who grows up to be a woman, if you don't find a way to connect with a woman in life, you're gonna starve. And then who's the woman? Who's the person who's going to help put you when you can't do anything for yourself? It's going to be a woman. So look, boys and girls, wake up, wake the fuck up, get
Well, well, well,
off
well,
of
well,
that.
well, well, I just want to cut, I just want to be as respectful to all the people that's listening. We want to keep the language because we have young people
Oh,
listening as
oh,
well.
yeah,
No,
you're
no, no,
absolutely correct.
but
Absolutely correct. I found
I
another way to say it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I really, we have to be mindful of how we treat each other, and I have so many questions that I want to ask, but I wanted you to, just give and express your experience for now. But I know we're going to dive more into that experience, but I have some questions that I want to ask, and those who are here with us, I just want to say tonight conversation is going to challenge us to think beyond interpretation and reconnect with origin. All right. Too often our stories begin with struggle, but our history begin in brilliance, and that's what Mr. Higgins will be talking about mostly from his experience, from him being traveling to Africa from the 1970s. Um, I know he gained not just the experience itself just by being there, but he also get to capture things that we may not get to see if we don't see what he shared with us, because not all of us had the opportunity to go and visit and see what Africa is like. So, being that we're going to be exploring African spiritual and intellectual legacy, which is reclaiming historical memory. Which your work revisit Africa's spiritual and philosophical tradition long before slavery narratives dominate the conversation, which you were just sharing. And so, why is reclaiming pre-slavery African history essential for affirming identity today?
Well, it's important because we are the originators, and all of this information has been obfuscated and hidden from us. There are no smarter people in the world than African. The history shows that no smarter people have existed in the world other than the African people, and specifically Egyptian people. And why? The Egyptian, if you do mathematics, if you do calculus, it's because of an African mind. The Egyptians invented mathematics. If you do astrology, it's because of an African mind. The Egyptians studied the night sky, and they gave us the sequence of the movement of the planets, and they gave us the calendar, and they then gave us the quadrants in the night sky that are called our horoscopes, our astrology. Only because of a black mind did we know that Tuesday this week will happen in the same place of next week. Because they gave us the calendar, the daily calendar, they gave us the calendar of months, and they gave us a calendar of years. If you do anything that has to do with uh, gravity, geography, writing, for writing, they gave us the most advanced system of writing by using a system that uses concepts, that speaks in concepts, not just letters. They gave us religion because they're what they call the natural philosophy, not religion. And the reason so is that their natural philosophy was they paid attention to everything. And they paid attention not only to the cycles of the sun, but they paid attention to what was happening around us. They understood that we were part of everything, and everything is a part of us. So their system of belief, their system of philosophy reflected what was happening in nature. And a lot of in that nature, which still happens, they looked and they understood the generosity of nature, the generosity of the creator. The creator gives us an environment, and it doesn't matter if you believe in the same thing or that someone else believes in, the creator still gives all of you oxygen to breathe,
Correct.
because without oxygen you would die.
Yeah.
The creator also gives us light to see. It's generous. It gives it to everybody. And the Egyptians had a name finally for this creator. Now, this creator exists in two parts because they believed that everything was balanced. It may come as a surprise to you before it was changed by patriarch religion, white Arab religion, Jewish religion, is that in the Egyptian mind, the creator is a black woman. Now, and this black woman represents the nature of the night sky. Her complement is the male energy of the sun. Always, they understood in nature that everything dealt in balance. You have light, you have in day. You have hot, you have cold. It was very elementary, but they were able to pull all this together into a body of work.
Okay.
Now, this night figure of the sky. They gave a name, and this name is Nut, Nuit, represents the sky. And her symbol is a hieroglyphic symbol, is a horizontal line that dips on both sides and has an arc in the middle that's called the canopy of heaven. And she has two others on the top, but that's the main one if you see that. Now, how did this happen? Why does this happen? They produced a picture that's on the walls of tombs and sometimes on the caskets that show you this. But there's something else. Let me explain this. They
Okay.
believe that the sun, when it goes down in the evening, like a battery, a weak battery has to be recharged. And where is it going to get this charge? Their image is, if any of you do yoga, there's a position called downward dog.
Mm-hmm.
Egyptian had a body of a lean black woman doing downward dog over a planet. They knew the planet was round. Her arms, and what was interesting here, she's not over the magnetic poles, she's over the solar poles. Which way does the sun go? Because
Okay.
everybody can see the sun. May not all be able to see the magnetic north and south, but we can see east and west. So her arms were extended to the horizon on the west, and her feet were planted in the horizon on the east. So when the sun goes down in the west, her long arms in the downward dog position becomes the runway for the tired sun to run up her arms where she can swallow it. And when she swallows it, it starts the process of recharging overnight. Then it spends 12 hours in her body recharging, and it comes out of her womb in the morning on the east side. And that represents continuity. But there's something that happens here.
Okay.
In order to come out of her womb, she needs help. And she gets that help, which is really a energy force, a catalytic force that pushes the baby out, the baby's son out. And that force is invisible, and the Egyptians have a name for it. And as this is their one God, that force is invisible, helping Nu give birth to the son. And the name of that one God, and you may have heard this name before, I'm going to spell it for you. It's four letters: Amen.
Amen.
That's the name of the one Egyptian God. Amen.
Wow. Well, I just want to highlight one of the listeners, Erlex, um, that love your perspective. She, I think, let's see, just love what you're talking about. And this is new knowledge for a lot of us because this has not really been taught in history classes. So we appreciate your perspective, and I want you to keep the thought. But I want to ask the next question. So think about the question and continue where you are. But this question I want to ask, being that you're talking about, some of the things that we weren't privy to. Um, so how does history disappear? How history does not disappear by accident? All right, it is often intentionally minimized or reframed. Being that you're talking about, the gods and how our perspective, especially with the word "amen." So why is intentional historical recovery necessary in this generation?
Well, because if you don't know who you are, your enemy will make you feel you're anything else. It will confuse. It's disorienting, and you have look. The most expensive thing in the world is ignorance. Ignorance is very expensive.
Wow,
So if I can make you ignorant of yourself, then I can do anything I want with you
that's true.
because you're completely malleable. And it's not that the stuff is not there, but we don't talk. It's not talked about, and it's demonized. What they did then is they took the religion, they took the philosophy of the Egyptians, and they used it as a religion to pacify people who they went to war with and attacked. And we know this because only in tombs underneath pyramids that are no longer there, 3 tombs in Egypt, do we find chiseled in the wall lines that say, I have not committed adultery, I have not committed murder, I have not stolen from the gods, and the creation story of Newt that I just gave you.
Yeah.
Now, it took me almost 20 years to discover this, that it was there,
Wow.
going back and forth to Egypt, because the books weren't talking about it. And the only reason I got to know it is because I started joining these Egyptological associations. Now, Egyptology is a science that is meant to separate Africa from itself.
Oh, wow.
You don't have Greekology, do you?
No.
You don't have Romanology. No, you have Egyptology, on by design to confuse what is going on. And Egyptology today is a very racist study, foundational. And the people who get their PhDs have to agree with the foundational racists. And only in the last 10 or 15 years has that been changing. We now only have our first Black woman Egyptologist at UCLA, Solange Knowles, the first, because she had to navigate through that Byzantine system of being able to find a professor who would accept her feelings that these people were African. And that's why I did this book. As I learned more and more about Egyptology, I realized that there was 2 ways of solving this problem. One, I tell people, if the Egyptians were not African, then why didn't they build their pyramid in Europe?
Wow.
Why didn't they build it in Arabia? I mean, why would you do all that? Why would you build your temples here if this is not your home? And your home is on African soil. So, so the other way I did it is that using Sacred Nile, I've worked so hard in 1973 was a very pivotal year for me in studying East Africa, because in May of 1973, I made my first trip to Ethiopia. And Ethiopia just really blew my mind. Here, these people are doing a culture that's obvious. It's like out of out of history, out of ancient times, and here my cousins doing. They're taking care of themselves, and they're the only country in Black African country in the world that has defeated a white power. In 1881, 25,000 Italian troops invaded Ethiopia. The scramble of Africa was going on. Every European power was taking land. 25,000 Italian troops invaded Ethiopia, and they had superior weapons. They had guns, they had cannons, and the Ethiopians had a few guns and mostly swords and sticks. So they could not beat them by weapons. So they beat them by geography. They had their spies embed themselves with the Italian army and take them in a way that led them into between mountains into a cul-de-sac. And from that, when they was in the cul-de-sac, all the Ethiopian peasants with their few guns and with their axes and their knives and with their swords descended upon them, because immediately their guns could not shoot up. And they slaughtered 25,000 white people.
Wow.
That news shook Europe. Never before had any European power been defeated by an African nation. Ethiopia earned respect. They earned the respect and to send their envoys as ambassadors to Africa, to European countries. And they stayed as an independent nation. And the Ethiopians are very proud of that history, and they won't let you forget it when you go there. And they
Wow.
say this is what makes us different from every other African. But they didn't stop there. Haile Selassie, being head of the only free African nation, was very happy when people like Kwame Nkrumah came on board in the 50s saying Africa need independence from colonial powers. But they did not have the weapons to fight the colonial powers. But Haile Selassie and his rulers before him had no arms embargo. They could freely buy weapons. They had gold. They could trade their gold and buy weapons from the Russians, from the French, from the English, the Germans, whoever they wanted. So what Haile Selassie did is he made a sacrifice. He each year bought weapons for his army, cannons, whatever, dynamite. He made the sacrifice and the decision that I'm going to buy twice as many weapons that I need. And I'm going to hook up with this guy named Kwame Nkrumah, who's fighting for independence, and all the other independence movement. And I'm going to tell them, come to Addis and talk to me, and bring with me all of your freedom fighters. And my army is going to train them. And my army is going to send back with them weapons so that you can hold up a good fight against the white invaders and colonialists in your states. And that's how Africa got freed,
Wow.
because of this one man and because of the Ethiopians who had never been subjugated and colonized, felt they had the right to kill the white person who was one to stand on their neck.
Oh man, and you know that is really interesting, and I can tell you, a lot of our listeners haven't heard you know this kind of or gained this kind of knowledge of you know different African countries, you know, and how they have navigated their way. Because I think I've briefly heard about Ethiopia, and you know what you just shared. With them standing up for themselves and them being the only independent African country, so I can just tell that you know not everyone will be privy to this kind of knowledge. So I really appreciate you sharing that perspective, because it gives us you know insights and perspective on what you know may have empowered them and later empower other African country. But my next question to you is: how does reframing slavery as an interpretation change the psychology of Black identity? And that's beyond interpretation.
Well, in every colonial setting, school, when the colonialists tell you what your history is as black people, they tell you your history is slavery. Not that slavery didn't happen, but they wanted you to feel that you come from nothing, and that whatever you came from is at their their
Mercy.
at their mercy. So, and I tell people two things. First of all, our people were never slaves. Our people were enslaved. Slavery is a condition, not an ethnicity. It's a condition. The person who came from Africa here didn't stop being a person because somebody reduced them to purchase them, reduced them to a thing.
Servants. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't stop breathing. They didn't stop feeling. They didn't stop dancing. They didn't stop wanting to be free. So you cannot say that a person when you say that a person is a slave, you are doing the enemy's work of taking away their humanity. They did not lose their humanity. They just got caught up in this corrupt system of the white man. And I say slavery is not our history. Slavery is an interruption of our history. Slavery is the white man's history. Why? I'm sorry. My people didn't own the banks that bought the thousands of ships that went back and forth. My people didn't own the plantation that produced all of the different crops and then sold them to Europe. My people didn't create the torture, the need for the torture and terrorizing of this population of innocent people. So no, no, slavery is not my history. This is your history. Slavery is an interruption of my history. But so then we're left with then what is my history? And that's just what I've been showing in my pictures, in my two books, major books. My book on the African diaspora called Feeling the Spirit, Searching the
Mhm.
World for the People of Africa. Google it. And this book, that book was published in 1990. It took me, what, 35 years to be
Wow.
able to do this book, Sacred Nile. Working constantly, following the spirit, hoping I don't die before I finish this project. So between those two books, I've told you who you are and where you're, and I've showed you your cousins, and I've showed you how you fit in. And that regardless of national boundaries, you are cousins. And you enjoy the same culture, you enjoy the same mind, and you can be proud of the fact that wherever we are, the existence of a competent black mind is awesome. Whether that mind is in culture, finance, um, or knowledge. We are when you know when our people when the playing field is level, our
Oh
people
yeah.
excel.
Oh yeah. Always, always,
They take
always.
over,
But
whatever
you
it
said
is.
you said the importance of an intellectual black mind. What did you say just a while ago? I think
I
that was
says the competent black mind is an awesome thing.
correct. Correct.
And that
And
awesome thing has invented so much of the things that we rely upon, from the traffic light to the incandescent bulb to satellites. That black mind is incredible, and but we don't know that. We don't know who we are. We don't know our value. But when that changes, then everybody we when we change how we see ourselves, then it will force other people to change as well. But the
I, I
process starts with us.
Man, I strongly believe that we cannot wait on others to paint a picture of us. We
It's
have to
not.
paint the picture because they're not going to change the perception or perspective of who we are. We got to get back to who we are and paint that picture. And just as you said, with your images that you capture, you create, you are helping to paint a different visual than what society may have painted or constructed or engineered about who we are.
Yep.
And,
And
and, and, and
and it's our responsibility. It's not our enemy's responsibility to tell us who we are. It's ours.
I strongly believe that we have to take charge of the narrative that we want to create. And to be honest with you, and that's why the Black Male Impacts started, because I normally go to not just the bookstore, but looking at the magazines, and it's like whenever they put a black male on a magazine, it's always like with this rap aggressive look, and there were so many other black males out there doing great work, intellectual work, community work, impactful work, life changing work. And I was like, man, I'm not seeing that. And believe it or not, when I started my doctoral degree back in 2017, and I start doing the research, and I came across so many black men with PhDs, I was shocked because that's not the narrative I was privy to or known. I didn't know because I didn't see it out there published. And I said, man, I really want to get more into this work so I can be a part of highlighting those who are doing the work. And that's what even started the Voices of Impact, where I get black men to share their story, their success, and their experience. And because I know there are so many, and it's not just black men, we see black women doing exceptionally well. But sometimes as black men, we are so far behind, and no one is going to if we don't. And so that's why I really love the work that you're doing, because you are sharing things with me that even though I've gone through school, I've get the whatever highest degree that they can give, there are still a lot of things that I was not exposed to. And also, it's recent. It was when I was an adult. I know about some of these inventors, these black inventors who created things that we are now enjoying. But I want to ask this question on education. If education has often centered narratives outside of Africans' intellectual contributions, how can education today become a tool of restoration rather than a mission?
We have to take control of the curriculums. We have to rewrite the curriculums and rewrite the books. That's why this information is so important. Because the first thing that's going to happen when you talk to your colleagues, your white colleagues, is they've been raised in the same disinformation that we have, and so it's normal for people to doubt what you're talking about. And that's why, again, photography is so important because photography is evidence. Young
Yeah.
people call it as receipts.
Mhm.
My project on the feeling the spirit, I didn't know for that was a 26-year long project. I didn't know for 20 years what I was doing. I was just following the spirit and living and photographing. And then I became aware that in the academic circles, there were a lot of black studies people who was saying, hey, look, we're not alone. There are a lot of African people. In fact, there's a world community of African people, and that's called the African diaspora. And the pushback was intense from all of the Jewish and white historians. They were pushing back, and so what you had was a dueling between words. So yeah, I can produce a paper that says this, and I can produce a paper that says the opposite. So, that was going back and forth, and I realized that, wow, I may be able to help with this because I have the visual evidence of what they're talking about. So that book, Feeling the Spirit, Searching the World for the People of Africa, is a book that shows our history from Egypt to here. And it shows our connection and our cultural connections over different times and over different nationalities. That book, the publisher, I convinced the publisher to publish 52,000 copies of that
Wow.
book. If you're lucky, you can get one from Amazon now, but it's not automatic. Now, but what I found out about that book is that most people who bought that book were white people
Wow.
because they loved the art. And, if they were into art, it was National Geographic for them. So the people who I wanted to have the book, who would benefit the most from the book, sat back and didn't buy it. Now, the book did cost $40. That was a lot of money. That's the problem with art books or photography books. It's not a $10, paperback. It's not even a $20 hardback fiction. So that separated people. And then the other thing is that African Americans, because we self hate, we don't like Africa. We're still in this thing, but I ain't lost nothing over there.
Hmm.
So therefore, it's a subject matter. So those three things went against us. It's not that the work wasn't available, but our headset was not ready for it.
You are right. When that type of work, although you said, it is $40, but if, we spend $40, sometimes don't even know where that $40 go. And I tell you, and people, say it a lot, like, they would prefer to buy this over there that's not going to be any benefit, and something that can be beneficial, not just for this generation, but for future generation. They sometimes refuse, not even to purchase it, but also to support the work that, you have dedicated yourself to. And as you said, that it was more white people who have purchased the book, and I've seen this many times. I've seen even some of my books that focuses on black male students. They were purchased mostly by white female teachers, and you be wondering sometimes. And I've been to the museum, the African American Museum, And I tell you, I've seen more people that doesn't look like me. They're looking at these things, and I was like, why we are not, in this place, really taking in the work that we have done, because I feel so empowered just to be just to be inside the museum. I tell you, I go there, and I'll go there every week if I get the chance to, right? But as you said, sometimes we spend the money on nothing and something that can benefit us. We don't.
We don't find ourselves interesting.
Wow. Hmm.
We don't think we have agency.
Wow.
We're not like Jewish people. Jewish people love themselves. They find themselves very interesting. They'll make an argument about anything that's Jewish, just that relates to Jewish people, in a positive way. Our people don't. We don't find ourselves interesting.
Man, and that's a great perspective, and it's really um, sad at the same time, that we don't and we should. And I think I heard a comedian said something pertaining to that. He said he went to China, and he was talking to a Chinese, and the guy was telling, man, if you guys start everything, you guys create everything, but you make the world take it and make it their own. It's like, he said, but you guys don't even know how powerful you are.
We're
That's
not, and because we don't know ourselves, we're not good trustees.
wow.
Because
It,
he's right. If we knew ourselves, our trusteeship would change the world. But we don't know.
Man, that is, and we hear these things all the time, and we say, man, you know when are we going to realize our true power, the impact that we can make, and that we are powerful beyond measure? And it's not until we realize that, and I think that I don't know when that's going to be, but I
But I,
think,
but I have to congratulate you for
thank
doing
you,
what you're doing.
appreciate it,
We
thank you.
both have to. This is a huge problem, even the problem during the time of W.B. Du Bois. But I was taught earlier how you eat an elephant,
One bite at a time.
one bite at a time. So you keep biting, I keep biting, encourage other people to keep biting. At some point, this thing will make a circle.
Correct. Oh yeah, man. We must see ourselves as interesting, and we must love ourselves. And I tell you, once I, decided that I'm going to do this, I tell you, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show up and do it, because I do feel compelled, and I do feel that I need to play a part in helping to change that narrative, the perspective we have of self. And and it's just because I haven't shared my journey, because I was not the person who is supposed to be doing this. Where I start and what
Mhm.
I start with. Even today, some of my high school teachers can't believe this is the same Richard Cross. So but the moment I realized my potential, and which I realized as an adult, I haven't looked back. I started to dig deeper, and I start to realize that the ability that I found at age 25 was already in me at birth. So and that's what we have to realize. Yes, and today, like now, as an adult, as I get older, I really appreciate the struggles that I was born into. But at first, I used to cuss at God and say, "Man, why I start here?" But sometimes we need that, to really appreciate what we have within. And then now I start to learn about those who came before me and what they have done, the great things that they have done. So, like, we can do these things. It's just to realize that you didn't start. It doesn't matter where your environment is, because your parents, they're born into a situation, and they may not realize their own potential. But once we tap into it, it's now our responsibility to make sure we help others to realize that they too have what it takes, not just to be out here existing, but thriving and make an impact, and at the same time help others to realize what is possible. And I want to talk, more questions. I know we're getting close to the hour, but we're going to go over it anyway. So, lessons of the past. Looking at early African philosophical and spiritual systems, what leadership lessons can Black men extract and apply today?
Um, I think one of the most one of there's several, but one thing that we have to that I think is helpful for us Black men is to not be afraid to be assertive, but clarity is important. And once you gain clarity, you two things happen to you. One, because you gain clarity, something happens to you that my great uncle told me when I was a teenager. The more you know, the more unhappy you become
Wow.
with the situation. The second thing is clarity means that you are then put in the position of either take the responsibility for the clarity that you have or walk back on it and ignore it. A lot of it's that moment of decision making that determines what trajectory is going to happen in your life. Um, and for those who take the responsibility, they then make a difference. They find a way to make a difference. And it's not going to be without hiccups. You will stumble, but you'll learn from your stumbles and you'll get back up and you will keep running and
Correct.
you'll keep pushing the goal further and further ahead of you. That's the joy. That's what a leader should be. And every Black man has a potential, just like every Black woman. We all have the potential to be leaders.
Correct.
We have to buy into it. We have to forgive ourselves for not being a leader and then prepare ourselves to be the leader that we need for ourselves, that we need for our families, for the people in our lives, and we need for our community. We need for our church. We need for everything. Wherever our people are, schools, all of it. Police department, all of it. You can't be a community unless you have some input and you have the ability to affect things like your security, policing, your health, hospitalization, your education, your schools, your balancing your budget at home so that there is some consistency and in your ability to keep a roof over your head. And then I also have to say, men, look, I know the woman is fine and we all want to be a part of that. But the creator made all of this. It's not her invention, it's the creator's invention. And let's be responsible. It's all right to appreciate, but let's be responsible. Don't create obligations for yourself in the future that will trap you. Use a condom. My heart bleeds every time I hear of a Black child having to be in an orphanage or a those homes when the parents have for whatever reason have walked away. It's not the child's fault. Don't put a child in danger. Uh, Protect yourself. Protect the woman. If you decide, that if your life has gotten better and 10 years from now you can afford a wife and a family, then do that. But don't make debts that you cannot afford, especially with the lives of our children. Don't push your child into a foster home. Take care of your child. Love your child. Because a lot of what's happening, splintering in our communities, is that the children grow up unloved. These children grow up unloved. And Africans have a saying, if the child of the village can't find love in the village, when it grows up, it will burn the village down.
Wow.
You included. So we see life short and we see it in long distance. I want men to learn how to see life more in long distance. Because when we see in long distance, we'll learn that the short distance stuff is not worth it. It's okay as a child. It's okay as a teenager. But once you pass 15, It's time to start thinking more as an adult, and you can only, your manhood can only come out if you water it. If you water it with the decency that you think that you and people around you deserve. And as I said, uh, we have to respect our women. You have to respect your mother and your sisters, and don't show your enemy that you are contemptuous of your own, because your own is all you have.
Oh yeah, if we don't, take care of our own, they, it, we just leave ourselves open, to be honest, to be subjected to anything. Because if you're not going to take the responsibility or take care of your own, so we can do just about anything. And I think that's one thing. That's a great perspective that we need to really look into. Because we are saying we want change, we want change, we want different change in system, different change in policies. But if we are not changing our behaviors, um, it's
As
going to.
Michael Jackson says, change starts in the mirror.
Correct, correct, correct. We should start with ourselves, which leads me to my next question. And for the listeners here, we may not get to the end of the questions that I have, but I'm going to ask as many questions as possible. I know we are already at the top of the hour, but I want to ask this question. Courage before oppression. Long before colonization, African civilization thrived in innovation and spirituality. What kind of courage was regained to build such civilization, and how do we apply that courage now?
It's the courage to face tomorrow and not be afraid of it.
Courage to face tomorrow and
And
not be
not be
afraid of
afraid
it.
of it, whatever comes, not be afraid of it. There are kingdoms that still exist in Africa, mostly in Ghana. But you know what I discovered when I went start traveling to Africa? I discovered mass graves.
Wow.
And those mass graves were of the Africans who resisted the Europeans when they first came in their ships and said, "We want your people." Those mass graves of people who have anklets around their arms. I have one. Those are the people we never heard about. When white people tell us, "Well, the Africans sold you to us," well, it was your business model. And they already saw the people who resisted what you did to them. You shot them dead and put them in mass graves. So only a fool would decide that I don't want to live anymore and I'm not going to work with you. So we there again we have been duped into the worth of our people. And only when we can pull those layers back like onion skin, and see that our people, and we are, because our people, we come from great people, period. Our enemy will want us to think otherwise. And once we ever discovered the greatness of the people we come from, we will start making changes because we'll start feeling that we deserve the better part of us to be on exhibit.
I think so, and I think with today's information, our ability to retrieve information, especially with AI, have seen a lot more positive narrative and deeper knowledge about who we are, where we start, and some of the work that we have done in the past that some of us did not get to study. So I think we are becoming a little bit more aware today, because almost every time I go on whichever social media platform, I can find new information on things that I did not know about Black people, about us, and what we have contributed, especially our contribution, and that how brave and courageous those people were. Because if they were told not to, and they still were able to, that shows the level of courage that it take for them to go against the narrative or the status quo. But from a visual standpoint, visual narrative, which most of your work, visual narrative and power, as long as a long-time visual storyteller, you have emphasized changing visual document concerning people of color. Why does controlling the narrative, both written and visual, matter for generational impact.
Okay. Did you see the movie Wakanda?
Correct.
It was a great film, right?
Correct.
But there was something, but there was a kill pill in that film for me.
Okay.
The kill pill was it needed that as great as these black people are, they need the white man to save them.
I saw that and I was thinking the same.
That shows you the power of narrative.
Man, that's really that's a very profound statement. Because I've heard a lot of people say the same thing. You know, after the movie when they were giving the reviews, despite the power of the people, they were talking about the white man that was in it. You know, because that also sends a message, and you know, because although we were all excited, but there was that subliminal message there where you find a lot of people spoke about. So, you know, that answer that question, but it's important that we take charge and make sure what we are putting out there when it comes to empowering really, you know, speak to the depth of which we want it to. So, faith and intellectual depth, African spirituality historically intertwined philosophy, science, and faith. What does that intergeneration teach us about balancing intellectual and belief today?
Well, um, you threw me with intergenerational. Did you
Let me say, oh, no, sorry, integration. What does that integration teach us about balancing intellect and belief today? So it's about
well,
faith and intellectual depth.
well, that integration means that we're going to produce a harmonious emotional and spiritual and intellectual environment in our bodies because our
Okay.
bodies are temples and they work best. It's like if you're using AI or ethyl gasoline for your car. They work best when the body, all those elements, those three elements are in tune. So we need to spend time and pay attention to our spiritual well-being, our intellectual well being, our physical well being, our emotional well being. Because all of those things, if they're out of sync, it become wobbly. It's like someone who's recovering because you had your legs broken and you have to walk around on two crutches, and I take a crutch away from you. If I take a crutch away from you, you're gonna be impacted adversely.
Okay.
So we need to get all of those. We have to see those different parts of us that all need to be in balance. We need to reflect the universe around us, nature around us. Nature is balance. When we have two windows in the sky. We have a window in the sky that emanates light because it gives it out, the sun. We have another window in the sky at nighttime that reflects light and soothes us. We have, hot and cold. Everything is balanced. That's the message that the Creator is giving us. If we can be balanced, then things will be fine. It will work out. It's we have when we have disharmony, that's when we have chaos.
Correct.
So if other people are in disharmony and chaos, fine, let them do that. But the only way you're going to free yourself from that is that you have to find balance and harmony in your life and with the people in your life so that you can then move forward. You have to have harmony with you. You have to love you before you can love somebody else. You cannot love a woman if you don't love you.
That's right.
Anybody. It's not possible. You have to your love has to create space inside for you and that other person.
Correct.
But we have to think about what love is. We don't need to go around falling in love. As I told my wife 42 years ago, I want you in my life not because I love you, but because I think that you will not upset the love that I already have for myself.
Wow. 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 That's really
It's
profound.
your responsibility to love yourself. My responsibility to love me. And when you love yourself, you have room for somebody else. But you don't want someone to upset that. That's the person when you if somebody's going to be in your space all the time. Of course, you're going to have things you talk about, but the important thing is that don't upset the love that I have for myself, the peace that I have for myself. Because when that happens, then things are not going to work right. We're going in different directions.
That's right. That's right. And so that was really profound. But as you talk about, having the balance, work on all of us emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically, but also make sure we love ourselves.
Number
Because I
one,
think that,
number
yes,
one. That's
we
number one.
must, yeah, we must love ourselves, and to love someone else. It's
Just love
important that
someone
we
else.
do.
To love yourself is not anti you.
Correct.
It's pro you, so that you can then love someone else. I know my I made my dedication to my book, Feeling the Spirit, and I said I love me, I love you, I love us. So my editor looks at me and he looks at my wife and he says, "Did you get this right?" I said, "Yeah, I got it right. If I don't love me, I can't love her."
That's right. That's right. And that's a good message. And as we're getting close to the end, that is a great reminder for all of us that are here listening. But before I ask my final question, I just want you to share where the people who are here and who will be listening to this later, where can they find your work, the book that you have published? Just where can they find you to give you the support, because I do believe that we all need to have a copy of that book in
Thank you.
our home.
I agree with you. Thank you very much. You can get the book Sacred Nile on my website. If you want to buy black, you can get my website, which is sacrednile.com. If you otherwise, you can get it from amazon.com. And if you just Google my name, you will get a lot of stuff. You will get my Wikipedia page. You'll see pictures of that I've made with the New York Times. I made all around. You'll get my stories. You'll get there's other video interviews and what have you. Just Google me, Chester Higgins, and that'll take you into my virtual world and find a place in there that you feel that fits you, that you feel good about, and get the book. Get all of my books, but get Sacred Nile. It's the first book I've done in color. Um, I did another book, but it was with the Egyptologist that's more technical on ancient Nubia, but it's not reader friendly like Sacred Nile. But yeah, enjoy all of my work. It's there waiting for you. You deserve it, and it's there to bless your mind because we all need that blessing.
Oh, thank you. And I will put it in the description, even when I'm repurposing the content, so they can get to dive into the work that you have contributed to make an impact. So the question that I asked before we leave today is on legacy in action. If ancient Africa civilization could speak directly to Black men today, what would they challenge us to build, protect, and or reclaim?
You know, the legacy of our people built the greatest empire that once controlled the world, ancient Egypt, before it became attacked by successive wars over hundreds of years. If we can and produced it produced the first scientific breakthrough that the world has ever known. And our people who back then, who were very rich and powerful people, knew that they would come when we would forget who they were. But they had the foresight to put records down in every medium available. They put it down in stone and sculptures. They put it down in paintings in their tombs. They put it down in chiseled languages in stone as well. Because they knew that they had hope and knew that there will come a time when there will be people who applied themselves enough to be able to come back to this work and be able to pull from it the messages that they need, the information they need to become great again. We have a destiny. Our destiny is like us. They had the symbol of a snake eating its tail. We have a destiny, and that destiny is to grow our head to come back and make that circle again. And we can only do that once we realize that we are not who we are right now. We
Right.
started we started and much earlier, and we were have been the one thing that all the world has admired. You know, you go to a museum, a major museum, the most important collection there is the Egyptian collection. Black people don't know that.
Wow.
And these museums can't get the credit of being a top museum unless they have an Egyptian collection. And Egyptian pieces starts off in the tens of millions of dollars. That's our stuff. That's our art. I mean, not ours. They're in possession of it now. They're trustees of it now. But it has that value because the black mind created it. Just like the black mind created philosophy, the black mind created religion. It's our invention. But because we don't know it, we don't understand how to be a trustee of it. We don't understand to look through the corruption that have been applied on top of it. But one day, little by little, that fog is going to clear up because of efforts like people like yourself, people like me, and other people, all of us working together. That fog is going to clear up. And because our children are going to benefit from that clarity and their fog, and they're going to then enter a new world without the fog that we were carrying. And
Right.
each generation, it gets better.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And that's a responsibility we have. That is a responsibility we have, and not until we realize, as you said, we will get there, and I think we are becoming more aware of what we have done and our own capability, so we can break away from the chains that is around our mind, that's limiting us, or get, as you said, the fog that blocked what is possible. Because once that clear, because innately we know we are great. I know we are great. And sometimes, when I, on by being on this journey now, and to come to my own understanding late in life, I realize that something is in us that we sometimes ignore because of our socialization and because of our environment. And I can attest to it, because I had no subjects whatsoever that I wasn't qualified to even start college. But at some point, I tapped into what was already there, unknowing to me. And it's just for me now to really keep nurturing my innate ability and encourage others, to nurture theirs, because it's there. They may be good at engineering, I may not, but it's there. You just have to tap into it. And who to say, I may be good at something else that I haven't even tried. But it's just for us to get to that point, remove the fog, as you said, from our eyes, and realize that it's up to us to build and protect and reclaim, and build something that the next generation can stand on firmly, as they go forward. So those who are coming behind them have a stronger foundation to stand on. But before we go, is there anything else you want to share to close out the conversation? I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation tonight, and I know the listeners. I didn't get a chance to get to all the comments that was shared here, but I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and I know the listeners have as well. Anything else you want to share before we go?
Yeah, I just want to say that, we are a worthy people. But it's easy to say that. It's something else to be able to point to evidence of that worth.
Yeah.
And that's what I have done the research and the pictures to make. I want you to study, to hold this in your hand and look at the evidence. My books can even be a tour, a guide if you went to these places. But looking at the evidence, I don't want to, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just trying to show you. And when you see it, Each day, each you take a picture a day and dissect it, work with it. At the end of that period, that year, you're going to be a different person. But it's not that and it's like you were saying, it's not that you're gonna because you're gonna know why you're different.
Correct.
And with that difference, you become a lighthouse to everybody else around you. To all the generations, they begin to look at you different because you now see yourself differently.
Correct.
And hey, have fun with that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
SacredNile.com. Have fun with Sacred Nile.
Yeah. Let me just make one. Okay. It's just I'm just gonna highlight this one last comment. I think the person loved that conversation. Thank you, Mr. Higgins. I will check out your book for sure. And there are some more comments up here that I didn't get a chance to. Let's see how I get to this. Yeah, but this is it shows that there are people who really enjoy the conversation. So thanks again to everyone that participated, that tuned in to today's conversation. And Mr. Higgins, I really appreciate the work that you have done and continue to do. It takes dedication to go years of doing meaningful work. So I got to commend you on the work that you're doing. And for the listeners here, as we close, remember this: history is not just something we inherit, it is something we interpret and build upon. So it's our responsibility to build upon what we have received from those who came before us. When we reconnect with the depth, courage, and intellectual strength of our ancestors, we expand what we believe about ourselves, and when belief expands, ambition follows. So we will not limit ourselves. The past is not meant to trap us, it is meant to inform us. And I just want to say thanks to all those who have tuned in today. And I can tell you, and as I've said for all my other guests, I try to find guests that I believe will share information and perspective that we all can benefit from. And I hope this will not be the last time we have a conversation with Mr. Higgins. Thanks again. And the Blackmail Impact is where positive changes are inspired. Thanks for tuning in and looking forward to our next conversation.